Hello and welcome back to Born to Rant. I'm Brandon, and this week we are taking a look at a movie that tries its hardest to capture the magic of its predecessor, the only 90s ninja movie to actually film in Japan, and the final movie in the original Three Ninjas trilogy. That's right, today we are diving deep into Three Ninjas Kick Back. Directed by Charles T. Kanganis and starring Victor Wong, Max Elliott Slade, Sean Fox, Evan Bonifant, Carolyn Junko King, and Sab Shimono. We'll take a look at the movie's Home Alone-inspired origins, its relationship to the rest of the movies in the franchise, everything that makes the movie still worth watching today, and its legacy over 30 years later. And okay, yeah, let's get it out of the way. Yes, technically Kick Back is the second released Three Ninjas movie. However, because Knuckle Up was shot before and features all of the original boys, I think that this movie really qualifies as the proper third entry and conclusion to the original trilogy. And I legitimately view High Noon at Mega Mountain as its own separate universe, even though Grandpa and the parents are all in it. Now, I had not seen Three Ninjas Kick Back since I was probably 10 or 11, so we're talking a little over 25 years here. But when I started the movie up, I instantly had a smile on my face. The opening sequence of the boys and Grandpa all in their masks is so much fun, and a wave of nostalgia just rushed over me. And honestly, same goes with the baseball sequence that follows. And I just remembered renting this movie over and over again from Hollywood Video. And this movie also features the return of the three boneheads trope from the original movie that was sorely missing in Knuckle Up. But more than all of that, the thing that really stood out to me upon throwing this movie on was just how good it looked. Cinematographer Christopher Faluna and costume designer Mimi Matsumoto really do a great job of giving this movie a crisp visual style. Like the choreographed ninja fights with different colored outfits looks genuinely so cool even today. But before I start diving too deep into everything that makes Kick Back still worth watching today, let's go back and get a brief history of the franchise and learn a little bit more about how this movie came to be. And much like Three Ninjas Knuckle Up, this movie really begins with the success of the first movie in 1992, which made $29 million off of a $2.5 million budget, and that instantly led to a sequel being greenlit, and that sequel began filming in the fall of that same year. However, production only got about 3/4 of the way through filming before it was stopped due to some issues with the rights being turned over from Touchstone to TriStar. So while production was halted on Knuckle Up, that movie's director Shin Sang-ok sat down with Sesame Street writer Mark Schultzman, and the two hammered out a very Home Alone inspired screenplay that saw the boys traveling to Japan. Unfortunately for the production, Chad Power, who originally played Tum Tum, wasn't able to return because he was working on a TV movie, and it sounds like after the messy production of Knuckle Up, Michael Triner, who originally played Rocky, had decided to leave the acting life behind, which meant that two of our three ninjas needed to be replaced. And the production looked to Sean Fox, who'd been trying to break on the scene as an actor with a couple of bit parts on Full House and Married with Children. Actually, ironically enough, Bonifant also did an episode on Full House and had also been doing some soap opera work when he was cast to be in Kick Back. And this would all make Max Elliott Slade the last of the original brothers to be in the franchise. So on May 17th, 1993, with a budget of $20 million, the movie went into production, and filming would last until late July and would be split between Los Angeles and Japan. And it sounds like the kids had a lot of fun filming in Japan. I found a really cool interview with Max Elliott Slade where he said they would go to the arcade like every day just to play new games that weren't out in the States yet. And on May 6th, 1994, Three Ninjas Kick Back was released into theaters, and on its opening weekend, it would place third at the box office and make $3.5 million against its $20 million budget before going on to make a total of just $11.7 million, making it a disappointing follow-up to the first film's runaway success. However, this thing was a juggernaut on home video. I know as a kid, I rented it probably a dozen or so times, if not more. The first one was always my favorite, and I did own that one, but I really loved that the kids wore their masks a little more in this one, that they went to Japan, that there was a cool dagger, and again, the colorful ninja outfits really captured my imagination as a kid. But anyway, all that to say that even though this movie didn't recoup its budget at the box office, once it was on home video and in rental stores, I have to imagine it became more than profitable. Apologies for the interruption, but I wanted to just jump in and let you know that today's video is brought to you by the members of the Born to Rant Patreon and our channel members here on YouTube. Born to Rant is a completely independent channel, so memberships really help me keep the lights on. Members get early access to new videos, access to exclusive member videos like this one on the Burbs, and access to exclusive polls. If you're interested in joining, there's a link to join the Patreon in the description below, or a button beneath this video to join as a channel member. And even if joining as a member isn't really your thing, you can still really help me out by either liking the video or subscribing to the channel. Like I said, I'm a completely independent channel and I use absolutely no AI in the making of my videos. And with all of that out of the way, I think it's time for us to grab our ninja masks and dive into everything that makes Three Ninjas Kick Back still worth watching today. Ironically enough, I think the best section of this movie is the opening 10 minutes or so. It begins, of course, with our traditional voiceover.
We got good. Your level is still ninja daycare.
No, yours is.
Grow up, you two.
And learning how to become ninjas. And we watch as they each try and surprise attack him. We also get the setup for the movie right away. And much like Knuckle Up, I think Kick Back has a generally stronger premise than the first movie, but it also never quite lives up to that premise in a way that I'd hoped it would. So Grandpa tells us all about growing up in Japan, competing in a tournament, winning the stagger, how his friend tried to steal it from him, and how he accidentally cut his face when that happened. And we also get the lore about the dagger leading to a cave of riches. And I really do wish that this movie was more of a Goonies-esque adventure story where we follow the boys trekking through Japan trying to find this treasure. Instead, the movie seems more interested in recreating shots and beats from the Home Alone series. This guy is basically just a bootleg Marv that tries to play the drums. But anyway, let's actually dive into the Little League game that the boys play right after our introduction. First of all, what kind of a Little League is this where we've got 13, 12, and 7-year-olds all playing together on the same team? I also really love the detail that the pitcher of the Mustangs is one of the bullies from the first movie. It just adds a little extra continuity between the two. Something that was really missing in Knuckle Up, if you ask me. But the game has a bunch of great moments, like Tum Tum immediately leaving to go buy 2 hot dogs, and we get introduced to Rocky's first crush of the movie.
Hi, Lisa DiMarino. Lisa DiMarino.
And I genuinely think the detail of including her middle initial is both clever and fun. It's like when you're talking to a friend and they tell you the first and last name of their childhood bully, like you'll know exactly who they're talking about. Although I do think it's kind of whack that Lisa doesn't get a single line in this movie. But she does get to distract Rocky from pitching, which is kind of funny. But really the whole game is about Colt and his anger issues. We watch as the other team basically systematically torture him as he's at bat, yet when he finally loses his cool, for some reason he's the jerk.
This is the most disgraceful display I have ever seen in baseball history!
Okay, and we gotta pause and talk about the umpire of this movie, played by Don Stark, aka Bob Pinciotti himself, which is kind of crazy because he's also in Knuckle Up as the sheriff, and I couldn't find anything about him having any personal connections to the franchise or anything, but he's absolutely fantastic as the umpire, way better than he was as the sheriff. Now, one thing I do have to say about this baseball sequence is even though it's a lot of fun and clearly inspired by stuff like The Sandlot and Rookie of the Year, it goes on just a little too long. Like, did we really need this whole section where this kid eats a can of beans and knocks everyone at the game out by farting? So anyway, the game ends with a brawl and a rescheduled match for the following Sunday, which really sucks for the boys because they were supposed to travel with Grandpa to Japan. But Colt talks his brothers into staying behind to instead play their makeup game. Now, my biggest complaint about Three Ninjas Knuckle Up was the lack of Hammer, Marcus, and Fester.
Drummer.
And Kick Back does its best to replace them with 3 other knucklehead kidnappers. We've got Dustin Wynn as Glam, Jason Schaumbing as Vinny, and Angelo Tiff as Slam, aka Bootleg Marv. And unfortunately for Kick Back, nothing about these 3 really works for me. They just don't have anywhere near the same chemistry as the first trio of dummies, nor do they have any of the same great one-liners like this.
Hey man, this kidnapping is so much better than armed robbery. Dude, yeah, I never got a pizza or a robbery.
But I do think they have a couple of fun moments throughout, like when the movie tries to recreate the first movie's home invasion sequence, which is fun. Although I have to admit, I really hate that they made Bonifant say,
"Let's Let's murderalize them.
So the Goons are fun, but ultimately don't add much to the movie other than some cheap giggles, and much like the first movie, they're actually hired by their leader, Glam's uncle, Koga, played by the always fantastic Sab Shimono, who I mostly know from The Shadow and his role in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. And anyway, he needs them to go steal Grandpa's dagger so he can get to the mythical treasure. After the boys successfully chase the Goons off, they take Grandpa to the airport where he accidentally takes Tum Tum's bag, and once in Japan, the Goons ram into the back of his taxi and steal his bag, which they believe has the dagger inside of it. Then when the boys get home and discover they've got Grandpa's dagger and that he's been in a car accident, Colt and Rocky both feel guilty enough that they end up booking all three of them tickets to go to Japan. But anyway, once we're in Japan, I do think the movie's momentum starts to stumble just a little bit. We go see Grandpa and meet his incredible nurse, and the stuff with the boys at the ninja competition is really cool, and again, I think this stuff looks really amazing. This is also where we meet Carolyn Junko King as Mio Shikagawa, who kicks Colt's butt and wins the competition. Afterwards, she and her mom invite the boys to stay with them since they never thought that far ahead in their plan to travel to a foreign country on a whim. And anyway, this leads to a pretty lengthy montage of both Mio teaching the boys martial arts and the boys teaching her how to play baseball. There's also some cute stuff of Rocky and Mio flirting, and personally, I think since Rocky's got Lisa DiMarino back home, Colt should have been the one to have the fling with Mio, especially after she kicked his butt. And this is where the main story of the movie really kicks back into gear. Koga and his men impersonate the Grand Master to try and get the dagger from the boys, but both the boys and Mio figure it out pretty much immediately, which leads to an extended action sequence. And one thing I did kind of notice is that I'm not so sure Sean Fox and Evan Bonifant had the same martial arts training as their predecessors. They never seem to do much in the way of choreographed fighting, and when they do, their faces tend to be covered up. But the boys and Mio eventually get kidnapped by Koga, and then it's off to the hospital so they can do the same with Grandpa. Then when the kids escape, we get this fun little action sequence through Koga's ninja training facility, which is just an awesome 90s trope that I love, and then they get to use these sick gliders to escape. And then we're off to the ancient cave to find the ancient treasure, and again, I really wish this was more of the movie. Like, if the entire second half of the movie had been the kids getting chased through this cave, I think we might have had something really special on our hands. Like, just imagine if we got a few more fight sequences down here and had more fun stuff like this slide. And I will say, the set design down here by Gregory Martin and Hiroyuki Takatsu is absolutely incredible. It feels so creepy and real, and Christopher Faluna really gave this section a cool look. But I'm also just kind of a sucker for seeing torches on screen. I love the way that movies light them to make them look like they can illuminate an entire room. So Colt saves the day by jamming Koga's gun, Koga and his stooges renounce their evil ways, and then it's back to America to get to their makeup game at the very last second. And the boys bring Mio into the game to catch the bully's home run, and then Colt hits a triple home run, does a bunch of backflips, and the boys win their game. But I do love the little stinger at the end with the bully trying to fight Mio, only to immediately get his butt kicked. So, over 30 years later, what is the legacy of Three Ninjas Kick Back? Well, I think it depends on who you talk to and how recently they last saw this movie. If you'd have asked me a month ago, I would have told you this was easily the second best Three Ninjas movie, and I remembered it being a lot of fun. And I do think that both of those things are very true. However, I was disappointed by just how big of a drop-off this movie was from the first movie. It tries to hit a lot of the same beats and riff on a lot of the same movies, but I just don't think it ever quite comes together the way it could have. Like I've said a couple times, I think if this movie had focused more on its general premise of the dagger unlocking an ancient treasure and half the movie taking place in the underground caves, it could have turned into something really special, almost Three Ninjas meets Goonies. But instead, this movie seemed more content to re-quote the first movie,
Let's murderalize them.
loudly announce its name,
We're the Three Ninjas!
and then steal shots and beats from Home Alone. All that being said, I would absolutely still watch Kickback over Knuckle Up. Even though Knuckle Up features all three of the original boys from the first movie, I actually think that Kickback plays as more of a direct sequel, with the boys' parents back in the fold and dad not loving grandpa teaching them to be ninjas, and the bully from the first movie being back. It just feels like this movie has more connective tissue and continuity with the first movie, where Knuckle Up feels like more of an anthology adventure. There are also substantiated claims by North Korean defectors that Three Ninjas Kickback was a childhood favorite of Kim Jong-un, which is ironic since once upon a time his father actually kidnapped Kickback's co-screenwriter and producer. But if you want to know more about that, check out my video on Three Ninjas Knuckle Up. But anyway, apparently Kim Jong-un loved this movie so much that his father commissioned a North Korean remake for him in the late 90s. As for the cast and crew, Sean Fox and Max Elliott Slade would both essentially retire from acting within a year or two of this movie coming out. Evan Bonifant has continued to act throughout his life, but the thing that I know him most from outside this movie is definitely Blues Brothers 2000, a movie that I recognize is absolutely terrible, but I kind of have a fondness for it just because I grew up with the original, and I remember my dad taking me to see the sequel when it came out. And yes, in 1998, Three Ninjas, High Noon, and Mega Mountain would be released, which would see all three original boys replaced. And I honestly don't know that I ever saw that one, but the broad opinion seems to be that it is absolutely terrible, so I have no plans to cover it, but let me know in the comments, which Three Ninjas movie is your favorite? Do you agree that this movie could have been better if it was more of a riff on Goonies? How do you feel the Goons in this movie stack up to the Goons from the first movie? If you've made it this far into the video, thank you for watching, and as always, a very special thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon and my channel members here on YouTube. I truly could not do it without you guys. If you're interested in becoming a member, there's a link to join the Patreon in the description below, or a button to join as a channel member right beneath this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out smaller independent creators like myself, and that's going to do it for Born to Rant this week. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.